Welcome to another episode of On the Way Home. I am one of your hosts, Michael Braithwaite, and as always, or I'd say maybe not always, but most frequently, I am joined by the fantastical Stefania from the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness. Steph, how's it going?
I'm good. And listen, your fantastical co-host once in a while needs to get a flu shot, and I feel like I will never live that down. I miss one or two episodes. But obviously I am back, ready
Flu-free.
to go, protected against influenza, hopefully, fingers crossed. Flu-free, yeah, so far so good, taking it day by day.
I am fantastical myself.
But yeah, I'm good. How are you doing?
It is Friday. It is sunny in the fine town of Newmarket, where I'm coming to you live. Well, I guess not live because this will be recorded, but yeah, it's a good day. It's the end of the week. It's been a great week for Blue Door. Lots going on. What's happening at the Canadian Alliance?
Well, we are, as usual, trucking along, just trying to end homelessness in Canada, which is just easy peasy. We really picked an easy goal, straightforward. But no, I think we are, diving into our lobbying efforts. We're working with our communities. I think we are trying to finalize the details for the National Conference on Ending Homelessness for 2022, because it's hard to predict where the world will be in a year, but we have to make those decisions really early.
I have a feeling I'm going to have to travel really far next
year
about
for
what
the
we're
conference.
Up to. I don't know. Don't spoil the surprise. I'm looking forward to packing my bags and getting out of the city of Toronto. You're picking up what I'm putting down. And listen, speaking of fun times and creative times and innovative times, that's a terrible segue, but let me tell you about our awesome guest that we have today. Joining us today is Yasushi Ohki. Now, listen, we usually ask guests, we'll say, can you send us a quick bio or not? And I read this bio, and wow, I was blown away by it, because he obviously wrote it, but wrote it just a little differently. So stay tuned here. So Yasushi Ohki started as a developer in the land development industry and plowed over farmers' fields and paved over our land in the pursuit of making my bosses ever more money. There was a downturn in the economy, which slowed down development, and I looked for alternative work. I spent 3 years at the city in housing homelessness and saw the light. That's where I learned the damage being done by an inequitable system of producing housing in our city. Ever since, I've been working to find a better way to get neighborhoods back into healthy balance. First, I was the housing director at Homeward Trust, awesome, and then I set off on my own to start a nonprofit land development company to pursue innovative housing options to prototype and test. That company is Green Violin. Very cool, eh? I didn't let you down. Yasushi, welcome to the show. Cool.
Oh, thank you very much for having me here. I'm super excited.
Well, given that awesome bio, I really, really appreciated how you started that. We've been asking our guests the same first question. And even though it's the same question, the diversity in answers has been really wonderful. So I'm so curious for your answer, but what does home mean to you?
Well, home to me is more than just the four walls, the roof, and shelter that we all look at. I came to a perspective of home through my work at Homeward Trust, where we were taking the most vulnerable of our populations off the street from living rough and putting them into homes or into shelters. But then the question that always rang in my head was, what next? What do people do once they achieve housing or shelter? And so I started looking beyond the walls and into the neighborhood, the street, the community that the project happens to find itself in. And I think that's where the answer of what is home to me came about, because there are wonderful people in the neighborhood trying to make a difference. There are support systems, there's shop owners, there's neighbors that are willing to help, and I think that is all part of home. So home for me is the social fabric of what makes our neighborhoods, more than just the physical
if there were awards for intros and answers to that question, I think you'd definitely be a contender. Well done. I love how it's about neighborhood. Amazing. Now, Yasushi, in our research on the Green Violin, I see you often talk about the Green Violin Way. Like there's a way to do that. Can you tell us more about this and what makes your organization truly different?
Well, I'll start off, Michael, by saying what it is not. And it is not the way I used to do land development, which is looking for affordable land, adding value, helicoptering in a project, and leaving after the project is either sold or passed over to the housing agency that's operating it. My philosophy is not so much I'm a developer in your neighborhood, but I'm a neighbor that happens to have developer skills. So much like we all have that friend or neighbor who has a dream house they want to build, but they don't have the technical skill to build it, so they'll go to a builder to execute it. I'm like that builder, but I'm a developer. So I listen to my neighbors, I take part in the community leagues, I go to business association meetings, and I talk to my people, the residents of the neighborhood, to see what the neighborhood needs. And then using my skills as a developer, I start to look for ways of utilizing vacant land or infill project opportunities to fulfill those needs of the neighborhood. So the Green Violin, first of all, is being a neighbor to start and not an outsider to the neighborhood when being a developer. But to go one step beyond, we're looking at ways of activating the vacant lots that we purchase to connect community on the land prior to the development going forward. A great example are the community gardens that we have on our vacant lots. It really brings the neighbors together, and we can start talking about what Green Violin is and what the future vision of this land is, and get more input at that time as well. And then as we undertake the construction of it, we've got our architect and our contractors all already visible, identifiable, and working with the community. And they're great organizations that I've aligned myself with, RPK Architects as well as Stuart Olson, and they have a real social mind in getting communities and neighborhoods up and going. So it's been terrific working with them. But then the third component of the Green Violin Way is we don't just leave the project after we set it up. We retain a unit within the building. We call it a hospitality suite, where a community member comes in, somebody that the community has identified as in need of housing, maybe in need of a little extra help, and certainly part of the community outside of the building. And what they have as a role is to bring the activities already in the neighborhood into the building so that it connects the tenants of the building with all those wonderful things that make a place home. So introductions to neighbors, activities such as winter festivals or other community gardens that are on the go. And that concierge becomes a link between the tenants of the building and the greater community. And I think that's the Green Violin, where we really start with housing, but we end up with the well-being of neighborhoods and what we defined as, quotes, home.
Now, you've taken the bold step of starting your own company, and congratulations on that, because that is never easy. What have been the biggest challenges so far, and what are you most proud of?
Oh, biggest challenge is that we only have 24 hours. There is so much work to be done. There are so many advocates and supporters that have come out, all the way from post-secondary institutions here in Edmonton to other housing agencies to just neighbors or friends who say, what can I do to help? And I want to activate all that energy and put it towards my projects. And it's a matter of keeping all the plates spinning and all the balls in the air and making sure that we've got timely responses to emails, that we appear at these events that are important to us, and that we get the word out on what we're doing so that we start getting the support from our politicians and our funders. So what am I most proud of? I'm proud of the people that have stepped up to help Green Violin and its mission. It's been an amazing journey these last 2 years in setting up this nonprofit, and the sheer number of people whose values and philosophies align, or that Green Violin aligns with them, is just phenomenal. I'm so proud of Edmontonians that have this ability to give and try to make a better place with the energy and the talents that they have.
And, you know, I think what's so exciting, Michael and I love having guests on where we really get to dig into innovation, you know, new ideas that are happening that perhaps we're not even aware of, even though we're in the sector. You know, things like pocket houses. So what can you tell us about them, and what are the benefits? And I'm being very honest, I don't know what a pocket house is, so I'm excited for this answer.
Stefania, in a nutshell, a pocket house is a really small modular house that we just lift into place. We started off with backyard suites. They're also called granny suites. They're called garden suites here in Edmonton. They're called laneway housing in Vancouver. Essentially, it's a way of utilizing found land that hasn't escalated in value, that can be either leased by Green Violin or donated by the landowner, or even utilized by the landowner in providing a plot to put down one of our houses. And by one of our houses, we've got several different prototypes that we're testing. The pocket house is a 14-foot by 14-foot, very small house. It's part of the tiny house movement where we live modestly and with a minimalist perspective. But the genius here that we're testing is there are companies in Edmonton, being close to the oil fields and having work camp housing, which is modular, a lot of expertise in creating modular housing. So what we're creating is a off-site built modular house. The challenge to my team is within 24 hours, we have the services connected to the house. We have a fence put in between the garden suite and the main house. We've got landscaping put in. In the meantime, we've got screw piles in for the foundation. We put down the house, we connect the utilities, and by that evening we have a barbecue going for the guests who are moving in or the tenants who are moving in. So that is kind of the house that we have in mind. That again, when you talk about innovation, that's the phase Green Violin is innovating, prototyping, demonstrating. What we're hoping to do in the next 3 years is get our portfolio of innovations out there. And by innovations, I mean we are testing the boundaries of acceptable building practice in some manner, whether it's density and land use, whether it's construction materials, and whether it's social organization of our communities. So each of the projects will demonstrate one aspect that we're pushing the boundaries on. Later phases where we call it ramping up to make a difference, we take the lessons learned, we take the successful prototypes, and we start replicating them throughout Edmonton to really make a difference on housing affordability here in this city. But to get back to your question, we also have CCAN containers that we've converted into housing, and that's being used for formerly homeless or underrepresented veterans to live in community. You might have heard of Homes for Heroes up here in Edmonton. I'm working closely with them. Homes for Heroes, David Howard, amazing fellow. It's a transitionary program, and we're looking at Green Violin projects and communities as being a landing spot for graduates out of Dave's program. Another model that we're chasing is a super insulated garden suite. So we're looking at a passive house certified garden suite. Basically for Edmonton's climate, we're looking at no operating costs after the construction is done. So that reduces the operating expenses, of course, and it contributes to the affordability of that house. And if I can add one more thing, shout out to the Indigenous partners that I've got, because we're looking at getting these modular houses out into reserve housing in the nations around Edmonton, so that we can do villages of clusters of these small houses as well. So we're having great communication and uptake on that concept as well. So again, only 24 hours in a day, but a lot of great ideas.
I'm getting tired just picturing all the work that you're doing. Listen, I love it that you're talking about truly affordable, right? Past just building it. Let's make it truly affordable with a passive house. Yasushi, in your description of Green Violin, you talk about, there's a lot of talk about being a good neighbor and being with the land, not just on the land. So with this in mind, maybe you can help us understand land use for gentle urban densification with neighborhood well-being in mind, because often the two don't go hand in hand, right?
That very complicated and complex problem that we're going to brush on here, Michael. One component of living gently on the land is the green part of Green Violin. Green is in the title of our company because it's to remind us Earth is our one home. We have to look after it. Every component of what we build is sustainable. We're pursuing technologies that are earth-friendly and low carbon footprint. So part of living gently on the land is living with the land. The other living gently on the land is interacting, because Green Violin is working primarily in infill of our cities and our neighborhoods using existing infrastructure. In that case, living gently and gentle densification means being not so disruptive as being complementary to the patterns of land use around us. And by that I mean walking paths to schools, or commuter paths to work, or shopping paths where we go to our neighborhood grocery stores. Everything that is part of the romantic image of the 15-minute community that we're chasing after, or even the 1-minute community where you step out your front door and the bakeries there, the coffee shops there, you can get a haircut just down the block. In order to get there, I think we have to work with the infrastructure that we have and have a plan towards getting there. So the manner we get there is green, and how we get there is by working with the existing infrastructure, and that is the gentle densification, more of a non-disruptive accretion of our communities as opposed to having big master plan elements.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of great stuff on the go. Now, let me ask you, this is, before I get into this next question, you mentioned the green part, Green Violin. Where did the name come from?
Oh, excellent question. I guess it started off when I started thinking about, and I've got a little bit of a musical background. I played the flute as a child. I really enjoyed music, jazz music, chamber music, the classics, but the violin to me is an instrument of hope. The music it provides is a kind of an anchor point in hope being established in a situation where it's very bleak. And one example I'll give you is the cellist of Sarajevo. You can look him up on the internet. He came out during a war-torn city period where there's actual snipers out in the streets, and he played music for the people who are still surviving in this war-torn city, inspiring hope. In the same way, I think the violin is a symbol of hope. Its music is hopeful. It can go, though, from a solo instrument to become part of a orchestra, a symphony of music. And that's what I see as, getting back to our original question, what is home? Well, it's that comforting feel of belonging to a greater effort or a greater community. And I think the violin symbolizes that. And again, green for the
absolutely. I think an orchestra wouldn't sound the same without the violin, and the violin adds something to that orchestra for sure. So where do you go from here? What are the future plans? I'm sure you have them for the Green Violin.
Well, the future plans is with the most current municipal election, we have a dream team of supporters for housing affordability on council. I really want to take that momentum and the energy that they have towards making that jump from demonstrating to actual implementing and replicating. So looking forward to getting all these demonstration units out there, getting them toured, understood, taken apart, revised, so that when we get to the ramping up to make a difference phase, we are ready to tackle it. Administration at the city is ready. Councillors know what we're what we're providing. We know what we're up against, the homeless situation here in Edmonton, and we've got solutions now. So it's just a matter of getting those funds going and these projects rolling out the door, and that's where we're heading.
And if folks wanted to find out more about Green Violin, where could they go?
Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Green Violin YEG, YEG. Also my website, greenviolin.ca, currently being updated. Hate using that word because it seems like all these websites are always being updated, but getting that done hopefully when some time allows. So taking a few of those 24 hours to try and commit myself to doing that. But definitely I try and post all my daily activities on social media. So that's a great way to both get in touch with me and to keep an eye on what I'm up to.
Well, that's awesome. And I would say updating and innovation are just both constant states of being. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But Yasushi, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Stefania.
I love innovation. I love it I just think it's so bold for someone to, see an issue, see a challenge, and instead say, as we usually hear, someone should do something about that. Government should do something about that. But instead say, I'm going to do something about it. It's bold to leave a job, to go off on your own, and be so passionate as Yasushi is. Just incredible stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
And be honest too. Did you really think, like, when
really
you think a pocket house, he was gonna, show you a little house and?
I was really into it. I love the term. I think I was just so excited for the term. It's a term I haven't come across. But because, in Vancouver, as Yasushi noted, that it's, laneway, coach house, I guess the kind of terminology we'd use, sort of. It seems like it's closely associated. So,
everyone wants to be
I think
in the pocket,
it's a wonderful term. And I want to hear more
about
it.
All right, we are definitely in the pocket here at On the Way Home, bringing another great guest with innovation and hope. Thank you for joining us, Steph. We'll see you next time.